Hello and welcome to the Medfield TV Meet the Candidate Special. Elections are March 29th and it is so important that you get out and vote. In this election, there is one contested race on the ballot, although another race does have a write-in candidate running involved. You can watch our What's on the Ballot special for more details on that and the other members of your community running for election. In today's Meet the Candidate special, we focus in on the important school committee race, with 3 candidates up for election: incumbent Liljegren, Lauren Liljegren, and Robert Worth. Today's episode focuses on candidate for the school committee, Lauren Liljegren.
I have 3 children. Historically, they've all gone to public school, and I have always genuinely believed that public school was a critical service for every community, right? Much like fire and hospitals and police. And when schools closed last March, that made sense, right? It was a really scary time. And then when they closed for the end of the year, right, that was troubling. And then, come September, I think hearing that some schools still didn't open, and I knew my kids were struggling, and I really started looking deeply into, how this was happening, right? How are casinos and strip clubs open, bars are open, but my kids can't go to school 5 days a week, and in some communities, kids can't go to school at all. So that was what really prompted me to get involved. I started a Facebook group, and we did a letter writing campaign and some letters to the editor in Hometown Weekly, and I spoke at school committee meetings and wrote letters to the school committee, really pushing for Medfield to be on the right side of history and open schools, right? So that children who wanted to go 5 days a week and families who needed their children to go 5 times a week could. We're hopefully getting there in Medfield. The word is it will be April, so that's great news. But it took us a long time to get there, and so I felt like now that I understood the enormous power that individual school committees have for the quality of education and even whether kids get to go to school, I wanted to join and to be a part of that. I think my voice is valuable, and so that's what prompted me to run. I think for me, it's return and recover. We didn't just put our kids in a closet and like a vacuum and unplug them for the last year. And I know that most of the time we've had the access to do hybrid learning twice a week. But I can tell you from my children's perspective, and I know the perspective of many folks I've spoken with, we've seen some regression in our kids. Additionally, you get to the idea that, well, some kids like mine, right, came out of the public school and went to private school. And some children maybe did full-time remote, but they had tutors or, the learning pods that we think of. And still other kids might be the children of essential workers and have been kind of doing this on their own, best they can in the remote days. And so we've always had an achievement gap in schools. It feels to me, and we don't have data on this, but I hope to get there, that the achievement gap is ever widening. And so I'd love to see a recovery plan that really calls out how are we going to manage this? What about children coming in and who didn't need individualized education plans or 504s before, but maybe do now? And the summer slide is long documented. We've had limited in-person instruction for a year now. How can we use the summertime effectively to boost achievement? And one-on-one tutoring has long been understood to be a cost-effective way to immediately boost achievement. Let's look into that. So I'd like to see and be involved in hopefully the execution of, but if not, the development and execution of a recovery plan that really calls out to the community exactly what are we going to do to get everybody back at least to where we were, and hopefully even better. So I'm a mother of 3. My kids are 17, 12, and 3 years old. And I have worked professionally as a business analyst and project manager for 20 years, always in employee benefits administration. I have experience with data, employment and labor law, data analysis, metric-driven plans. So I feel like my business experience, experience with reviewing balance sheets and budgets, really puts me in a great position to be effective to execute on the role of the school committee. I would also add that personally, I have a better than most understanding of special education law and procedure, and I expect to use that as well to further the causes of the people of Medfield. So there's a few things there. One is that at least this past year and perhaps in years prior, we've approved and ratified contracts that I don't believe were in the best interests of the children and families of Medfield. The existing school committee has 7 years of unanimous votes, and I joke all the time, my family of 5 can't decide what shape of pasta to have. So I struggle with how 5 adults from different households who don't speak outside of school committee meetings have so few follow-up questions and always seem to have the same opinion. I don't see the discord that I would expect. I don't see the follow-up questions. I don't see the debate that I would expect to see in a group of 5 people managing a budget of $40 million with all these competing interests. The second piece is we do have 6 open meeting law determinations in Medfield specific to the school committee. And, open meeting laws are complicated and some of these are small infractions. But to be clear, these aren't complaints. These are the actual determinations made by the AG's office. The Board of Health doesn't have any. The selectmen don't have any, and none of our surrounding towns have any. So that seems noteworthy to me. It also comes at a cost of $40,000 to taxpayers, right? Because in all of these cases, the existing school committee has chosen to fight these complaints versus simply admit wrongdoing, right? It's complicated, everybody makes mistakes and move on. So I think that's concerning to me that we're sort of not, I'd like to spend Medfield's money as I'd spend my own. And I don't know that I would spend $40,000 on a lawyer if in the end I knew I had made an ultimately small infraction with really very minor consequences, if any consequences. Some of the feedback I've received talking to people, and I've experienced myself, is the lack of transparency. And we use this word transparency. What I mean by that is I'm not clear on how we got here. How did we get to this place now? How are these decisions made? How does our money get spent? I watch the school committee meetings. I pay very, very careful attention, and I don't always understand. And I feel like, as a taxpayer, I should be able to understand. I feel like mold grows in the dark. I'd like to see some light shined on how we make decisions. Some suggestions I've had is when an email goes out to the school committee, it's public anyway, right? It can be requested via a Freedom of Information Act request. So let's be proactive and put that on the meeting minutes or put it in the website so that taxpayers can see these are the types of questions that are being asked. And also maybe a public forum. We've gotten a lot of feedback that people want to ask questions during school committee meetings. They want to get a response to their questions real time. They want to have a minute or two of back and forth with a school committee member or the superintendent to understand how we've gotten here. And it's not unreasonable to say we want to have a voice and we want to have that discussion in public. There's a mechanism to have an open forum. Medfield has had them in the past. I'd like to see 1 or 2 open forums held regarding this return and recovery activity that we're working through now. Given the unanimous votes on the school committee, I think where I want to come from is you already have, 5 of the same person, right? So I can guarantee you that I'll be different. My voice will be heard, and I won't always agree. And maybe there's a place for one Lauren on the school committee, right? Because you have 4 Leos already. So maybe there's a place for one Lauren. I know that my perspective represents at least a fifth or 20% of the town. One of the ways I think I can really add a benefit to the school committee is my experience with managing metrics, tracking success, and using real data to make decisions and to determine our return on investment. This year, the budget for the school is $38 million. It's a ton of money that we're spending, and I'd like to be using analytical approaches to see what is the achievement relationship to this investment, right? Where are we getting the most student achievement bang for our buck? The first and most important job of school committee is always going to be student achievement, and I want to make sure that we're spending our money to boost that. It comes up a lot that I don't have a background in education. I think that's a positive. I come to the table with a strong business background, but I'm an advocate for the taxpayers. My number one purpose will be to serve the interests of the community. The Medfield Teachers Association does a fantastic job advocating on behalf of its membership. My role on school committee will be to serve the interests of my community, the taxpayers, the citizens, the families of Medfield.
Thank you for watching our Meet the Candidates special. We will be following up on each of these candidates in another episode where they'll each be given a chance to respond to each other, and we'll have you, the viewer, write in questions on our Facebook page. You can write in a question on the Meet the Candidates post on the Medfield TV Facebook page, or liking the question you think should be asked. The top 3 liked questions will be asked to all 3 candidates. So questions should be written for all 3 candidates. Questions for an individual candidate will be removed from the post. The deadline for submissions and voting will be on March 8th. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and will submit a question or like a question you think will best serve our community. And I hope you join us on the follow-up episode of Meet the Candidates. Go out and vote on March 29th. Thank you for watching.